Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Blue Thunder Pod, AEW Edition. I'm your host, Billy Sullivan. With me again this week, our returning champion, my dad's favorite podcast host, Aaron Winkler, DMD.
Now a veteran of the podcast.
Now a veteran. We're documenting Aaron's journey back to the promised land of pro wrestling fandom. So yeah, hopefully we can keep it rolling. Sounds like from the little bit of chat we had before we started recording that you enjoyed this week.
I did
well.
I even brought someone else into the wrestling fold. My son watched with me today. We caught up on both Raw and Dynamite, and he is fully on board and was already asking when we can go to a show. So I think we got a new fan in the making.
That's our job as wrestling fans, to bring people into the fold. Watch out for the gatekeepers, though. A lot of dorks that kind of like hockey, where you're not a real hockey
Star
fan.
Wars fans?
You're not a real Star Wars fan. You're not a real. There's too many of those.
Yeah.
In wrestling. So this week we're gonna talk about Dynamite, as I said up top. First, the WWE iteration of this podcast will be going up at the same time as this. So if you haven't listened to that one already, check it out when you're done listening to this guy. Dynamite this week emanated from the Wintrust Arena, Chicago, Illinois. A really nice crowd, like 5,000, which is AEW had been struggling with the crowd numbers, for the last year, and now they're finally starting to see the numbers turn around, because you have to be good for a long ass time before anything changes, as far as ratings and stuff go. So it was in Chicago crowds are always good, but it was a loud as hell crowd at Wintrust on Wednesday. What did you think of Dynamite? Just general first blush of this Dynamite compared to the one that you watched last week?
I loved it, first of all, and I'm sure you're going to get to it because you're going to talk about the first match. That was a main event match to kick off the show. It was fantastic.
Absolutely could have been a main event of a pay-per-view.
Great. I mean, really, really great. And what a way to kick off the show. So, I mean, that, if that's going to be how you start it, I knew it was going to be good.
I could watch Bryan Danielson wrestle every day.
He is, before we started recording, I was wondering if you could guess who my favorite wrestler is in AEW, and it is for sure him.
That's a good call.
It made me actually...
Many people think he's the best wrestler who's ever lived.
It made me sad that I've been away from wrestling, and he's, like you said, he's now he's kind of letting younger guys win.
I do think, though, that the story, they're finally... our friends of the pod, Dave, as well, get pissed off at Danielson because they want him. He is a big star. They want him to win all the time, but he personally, and he has this creative freedom too to decide, what he wants to put everybody else over, so he loses all the time.
Which is still awesome of him, and it actually makes me like him even more because
I agree.
he's doing that.
We had this argument a million times about Danielson, but I think it's leading to something even better, because I think he's actually going to surprise win the Owen. I think he's going to win the world title as his last thing at Wembley as a full-time wrestler.
That would be awesome. I love him so much. I don't know what it is about him. He's just
it's everything about him.
It is. I mean, as someone who's never watched, immediately I was I just love him.
He's a savant, and he's literally, people consider him the best that's ever lived.
It's clearly it emanates from him, because I've watched him, for 2 weeks now, and
Vince McMahon didn't want to hire him because he's 5'8".
In love with him. Yeah.
yeah, he's the fucking best. He's Danielson.
Yeah.
But overall vibe, because for me, the pretty stark difference between last week's Dynamite and this week's, because of what they were trying to accomplish. And did it feel like a different kind of flow to you?
I don't know. It's hard to say, because last week was my first taste, and there was a lot.
That's why I'm curious.
Just trying to figure out what's going on.
It's always a fast-paced show.
It was a great show. It went by very quickly. I really enjoyed all of it. We're 2 weeks in now, and I think I know where my preferences lie in professional wrestling, and I definitely am.
There's fun to be had everywhere, but
there is. I don't get me wrong. I mean, WWE is super fun to watch still, but I definitely these last 2 weeks my preference, just for me personally, has been the AEW style of wrestling.
Because you're smart and an adult. So the reason I was asking is because. If you remember last week, I said it was kind of a weird disjointy show because it was the go-home show for a pay-per-view that they didn't really, it wasn't a big deal. This was the first show in the build to their biggest show of the year, which is going to be All In Wembley at the end of August. So this episode of Dynamite, it was everybody's best foot forward, and they started a bunch of new stories. They pushed a bunch of stuff forward. It was a very, very eventful, not just in-ring. It's always eventful in ring for AEW, but like not just in ring, but story wise too. Right. It was actually stuff moving forward, which is my favorite kind of Dynamite. For me, there was only one miss on the whole show. It was very nearly a perfect Dynamite, which they did pretty consistently in like 2021, but they haven't had a show like this, I don't think, since then. They've been trending towards the return to that since Punk got the boot, but this was kind of felt to me like the culmination of what they've been like working towards. You said the Danielson-Pack match kicked off the show. Not quite, because the cold opened on say hello to your mother for me. Daniel Garcia backstage interview talking about the match coming up, and then MJF approached and asked if he could corner Garcia, at which point I sent out a mass text message that said, "Oh, shit's going down tonight," because that was kind of telegraphed. Like, you could tell after the events of last week, and then it's MJF. Like, okay, he wants to be a heel now. He feels like he was left behind because he was injured, and people like Ospreay and Swerve are like bigger deals, so he's gonna go full evil now.
Got it.
And Danny Garcia is like a very beloved young wrestler in AEW, obviously. But that, like, I love when they do like the cold open like that, and they give you something like that's going to be a story, like a show long story arc. When that happens, usually it means that they're like clicking on all cylinders and that the show is going to be awesome. So I was like, fuck yeah, when they opened with that. And then, Danielson's music hits. So they're, this could have been the main event of the show, or a pay-per-view.
It honestly, like it was such a fantastic match.
Bryan Danielson versus Pac in the semis, I think, technically, of the Owen Hart Memorial Cup. Danielson was selling that he's the best seller ever. So there's a rule of thumb about Bryan Danielson that longtime fans know. If he looks like he's hurt real bad, he's fine. If he's ever hurt real bad, he looks fine.
Yeah.
He I love that they use kinesio tape, even though I think that's woo medicine. It's just perfect for pro wrestling because it was a benchmark for pro wrestling. Oh, here's my pinched nerve in the story that I'm telling right now. It's a great way to flag that for fans. And he was taped up to like a motherfucker.
And had the cupping marks.
Yeah, and the cupping marks, and they're telling the story that when Will Ospreay hit Danielson with that Tiger Driver 91, it impinged a nerve or whatever, and he's been messed up since.
Yeah.
Which is why I kind of feel like that's going to be the story that gets him. Everybody thinks Hangman Page is going to win the tournament. I think Bryan Danielson is actually going to win the tournament.
Well, I hope so too.
Yes, I mean history would say he's not because he refuses to win most of the time, but because it's he isn't retiring. By the way, he's retiring from full-time pro wrestling. He has said every time anybody has asked him, "I'll never retire from wrestling."
He strikes me as a guy that is going to be wrestling into his grave, at 85
if he
years
could,
old.
he would wrestle every day. He said he's said as much. I think he's going to basically run the show when eventually, because he's brilliant too.
Yeah.
He's done a million different kind of characters, WWE, AEW, all kinds of different stuff. So I think he would be a very good choice to take over for Tony Khan.
And I'll say about that match too that you said his name was Pac.
Yeah.
I was like, I saw him come out and like his look was like, ugh, and his name was kind of ugh, and then he wrestled great, and I was like totally a fan of his.
He was Neville in WWE. Now it's not just Pac though; he's a bastard because he's the bastard Pac, and he's like a Geordie with a goofy Geordie accent, but like very very violent, and does that thing where he sells like DVDs. Where it looks like he breaks his neck every single time. He's unbelievable. Pac's up there, like, in my opinion, with like the Kenny Omegas and Ospreys and Swerves and like that level, that S tier talent.
Yeah,
and
no, it was like don't judge a book by its cover, because I was totally expecting to
Pac doesn't win as much.
Enjoy watching him because of his name and because of his look. And then I absolutely loved the match.
What did you not like about his look? Particularly,
I don't know. It kind of felt.
I think he's got a great. He's like an ugly bastard.
He is.
He's super swole.
But it felt like. I think it felt, because to me it felt like it was a look. I prefer guys who like it's natural. It doesn't seem like they're going for a character look. And his was like, oh, he's that guy.
So this is kind of fucking funny. Pac is the only dude I think in all of wrestling that he doesn't wear anything but his little wrestling trunks.
Like, I think his hair.
You only ever see him, like, he looks the exact same. It's like a video game character or something. He doesn't have, like, street clothes. He just is.
Just wears that.
It's always just his little tights and no shirt. And, like, he's in gear all the time.
Yeah.
If he's doing a backstage promo, like a vignette, that is, like, I think he like plays video games at home in his wrestling gear.
Yeah,
because that's
I don't know.
Just the way the
I was
dude
just
is.
like, it seemed like almost like a dated WWE kind of look, and I was like,
yeah, I can see that. That's what I was curious about.
This. Like, and then that match was great.
And then once you see him wrestle too, it also informs then the way you see the gear, and like, oh, it's his persona. He's like Mr. Wrestling.
Like,
he never takes off his wrestling gear. So
it was. I shouldn't have judged, because I really really enjoyed both parts of that match. I of course loved Danielson, but then I really enjoyed watching him wrestle too. And so
Pac,
it was great.
The Dynasty review that we did on Blue Thunder Pod, I gave Pac and Okada 5 stars in their match. It was an opener too, and it could have main evented.
I mean, I think it was, like, in hindsight, it was probably my favorite match of that episode of Dynamite.
The main event was like close. For me,
good.
But this was the best. It was the best in ring. In a night of like a lot of pre-kick-ass in ring. I loved when things are going great, AEW fans can be very creative when it comes to chants.
Yeah.
And both these guys chant was my favorite. Both these guys, both these guys, both these guys. Yeah, my only notes were like Danielson's just the best at telling a story in the ring, because that's where you're supposed to tell a story in wrestling. It's not supposed to be a big melodrama outside the ring. You're supposed to use your body and your actions to like tell a story, and he's better at that than anybody. Maybe ever. And maybe him and Bret Hart, basically.
Maybe that's why I just immediately was like, oh, he's my favorite. I love him.
So this will be very, shout out to this, be very happy. He's a massive Danielson guy, as am I. He like kind of feels like you because he like noped out of wrestling when Vince ruined it for 30 years. And he missed most of Bryan Danielson's career, like as Daniel Bryan. And now he's like, I didn't see the brunt of the guy's career, and he's like the best guy.
Yeah, that was my first thought watching that match. Was like, man, I'm kind of sad that I've missed probably so much awesome stuff that this guy has done, and he's like, I'm coming in this late into his wrestling journey.
I will say, like, as great as he was in WWE, there's a cap for how good you can be because they don't let you do
and they've got
performance
their guys,
center bullshit,
and that's who they're going to push.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, he was a big deal. He was the champ a couple of times. I think I told the story about like the fans forced their hand with him because he's just so fucking great. But he was always like towards the top of the card. But like he just couldn't do all the stuff in ring in WWE because they have to wrestle that kind of slowed down.
Yeah.
They call it North American main event style, which is dumb. It just means slow ass performance center bullshit.
Yeah.
And he was great at that. But then when he came to AEW, it was like the last 15 years hadn't happened, and he was back in Ring of Honor like in his independent days, and just the cuffs were off, and he's the best. He's the best. And he says, well, I love like guys that talk and girls that talk in the ring during the match because it adds realism. And he has one of my favorite ones of anybody. He does a move where he grab like a downed opponent will grab their hands and then stomp on their face, basically. Looks like a hate crime. And right before he does it, he says, he's going to get his fucking head kicked in. For whatever reason, they'll let F-bombs fly even on TV if it's not on mic. Like, it could be clear as day, and they just let it go. I think there's like a cap for shits. They could say so many shits, and then they'll bleep like one, or they bleeped cuck last week when they Acclaimed. I'm like, is that a dirty word? It's a bad insult, but like, I didn't know that was bleepable.
Maybe they misheard it as something else.
It's because he did it again this week, and he's like talking about the Young Bucks, and he's calling them the Young Cucks.
Gotcha.
And, speaking of our favorites, people that are among our favorites, the Willow Nightingale promo. So I talked her up pretty heavy duty last week to you. Yeah. What did you think of Willow?
Oh, I really liked her. I actually saw her on the morning news program that I watch. She was in town.
When you told me that she was on GN, I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly.
We live where the show was. Yeah. So I saw her before I knew her, and so I got to see her a little bit on there, and she seemed really interesting, and I enjoyed her. I like her shtick. I like her thing that she does, her whole,
super
smile
positive
thing, and yeah.
And this was a new wrinkle. This promo, by the way, I've never even seen her like stumble on a single word in a promo. She's incredible. Like, she does acts and stuff during the promos that she's cutting, and she never messes up a single like syllable. It's unbelievable. But she was always like the super white meat baby face, like everybody loves me, because she does have that kind of positive charisma, positivity all the time. But I liked that they added this wrinkle of, okay, well, this is why I'm nothing matters, smile anyway, and it's for everybody else. It's to keep them propped up, and then that helps me to believe in myself. And like, it's just another facet to a character that was a little bit one-dimensional, because you're just like, oh, I'm just a good guy, whatever. It didn't matter. She was fucking awesome regardless. But like, I like that they're adding character stuff to her now. There's
dimension to it.
Like, a big problem with WWE, the women's division, is outside of like two ladies, I don't know if there's a personality trait amongst the entire roster. There's a ton of like really talented wrestlers that have been given nothing creative wise. Like, they're all the same. They're all
interchangeable,
generic wrestler girl. So one will be flippy, one will be muscular, like, but that's it. That's like, outside of like Jade Cargill and like Rhea Ripley, everybody's the same. And AEW was guilty of that for a long time too. Not to that degree, but like, North American women's wrestling, everybody's been kind of guilty of like, oh, we'll only put the women on if it's a title match. We won't let them have blood feuds, which is
and they fight over men all the time.
Fighting over men like was a huge trope for forever. And now like they seem to understand that, oh wait, if we gave them characters like we gave the men, they're much more interesting to watch, and the fans get behind it a lot more easily when there's actually like a story being told. I just said my note was nihilism. The little bit of nihilism is like fucking. I love it. I love it as a little facet to her, and I love the way she closed out the promo too. Nothing matters. Smile anyway. I guess we did get two promo segments in a row, right? Because it was Mark Briscoe, I think, then.
Yeah.
Which I say, give Mark Briscoe a microphone and let him stand in the ring and talk every goddamn week, because every time that guy opens his mouth, magic happens. I love him so much. What are your thoughts on this Suffolk County chicken? Is what that's one of his nicknames.
Well, I like that it's like over the top goofiness, but it's still funny. It's not like roll your eyes like hokey bullshit that can happen a lot.
He's goofy because he's a Sandy Fork, Delaware like farmer guy in real life.
Yeah. No, it's funny, and it's like on the nose just enough that it's funny. And
I've seen him out of character one time, one tiny little thing where he broke character and just was talking like this. And it was like from like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It was before his beard. He was like baby faced and in the real sense of the word, not the wrestling sense of the word. And somebody was like another wrestler was recording him on like a camcorder and did a little like mini quiz for him, and he like answered normally, and it was really weird.
Like jarring because it
was like I heard recently I saw a WWE documentary where Dusty Rhodes talked, not as Dusty Rhodes, and I wanted to like stab my ears out because I felt like I was sullied by hearing Dusty Rhodes not talk like Dusty Rhodes, Daddy, because I just thought that's the way he talked, Daddy.
Well, and honestly, it's impressive that like in any character like that where they're so you just associate them with that, which is not who they are.
Yeah.
And then like the fact that they could go out and do that all the time forever.
Like as far as I know, Dusty only talked like
Right,
Dusty.
right.
That's a big ass like thing to put on.
Right.
It's a big
Like,
swing to do 24 hours a day.
How do you not just then be that permanently? It's kind of like when sometimes you hear like Ben Affleck talk like he's from Boston and you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, yes.
Because he's not doing his actor voice.
Yeah.
Or is the Boston voice fake? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. And like Briscoe, like the accent he's doing is a Sandy Fork, Delaware accent, but like his real accent is much more muted. It just like he's playing up the character. Do you know what Blood and Guts is? The thing that he declared himself for? They mentioned it last week.
Oh, this is the thing where there's the two teams that are to be determined, and they're going to be.
Do you know what the like mechanism of the match is? What makes it Blood and Guts? It was called War Games back in WCW days, and then WWE did it too. They take two rings, put them next to each other, and put a big ass cage over the whole thing, and then everybody goes in and like. People are released into the cage one at a time based on like a coin flip or whatever. So people get advantages and stuff. And it's always super violence. Like Daddy Magic, Daniel Garcia's like manager guy. He's a wrestler too.
Okay, yeah.
The one that looked like he was dead at the end of the show. He, in a Blood and Guts match, I thought he was actually dead one time because he was bleeding so bad and got hung upside down from the cage. And he's just really good at looking dead, I think, because... Well, we'll talk about it when we get to it.
So I have to ask. So then, like the wrestlers themselves just declare themselves for being part of it.
There's not a lot of like declaring yourself for much stuff in AEW, but there are very specific things that you can, like, if the story has unfolded in this way, like the Elite are doing put together Team AEW, we're going to kick your asses.
Right. And it seemed like their team was already pretty much established minus a slot.
There's one left. And is it going to be Hangman? I don't think it's going to be Hangman.
Will it be? Won't it be?
And I love that Mercedes is tied in with the EVPs now too. But like, yeah, so you can then declare for the AEW side because you're like, rah, I'm here for the company. I think Swerve is going to probably end up being part of it, Team AEW. I don't really want the Acclaimed to be in it because fucking Billy Gunn, 65-year-old stupid ass, to be there, no selling for all the more talented people. I mean, I really do like the Acclaimed, like, proper tag team, but Billy Gunn makes my dick go inside my body. I hate him. I hate him so much, and it's just the only thing he brings to the table is that he has not died from that massive amounts of human growth hormone and steroids that he's pumped into himself to keep his body looking like that. And I don't want that to be in my Blood and Guts match.
Yeah.
I don't want, and if like Okada is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, if he has to have a singles thing with Billy Gunn, I may have to take like a week break from the podcast. So did you recognize Jack Perry, Scapegoat? I mentioned him last week based on familial tie.
You told me he is the son of who was one of my very first heartthrob crushes.
And huge wrestling fan, by the way. He was a huge indie wrestling fan.
Was he really?
Luke Perry, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I loved Luke Perry. I had the Luke Perry. It wasn't a Barbie doll, but it was a Barbie doll.
Yeah.
It was the 90210.
And Jack Perry
dolls.
Inherited a lot of the good looks. That hair is insane.
Yeah.
Like it. That the video footage that they released of like him and Punk getting in the fight that subsequently led to Punk getting fired.
Yeah.
It's super funny because he keeps like running his hands through his hair like the whole time, like luxurious, like he's in a Pantene commercial or something. And then like Punk attacks him like mid hair tussle. But he's awesome. He's not like he has. Until the Punk thing happened, like his character was really not much. He was Jungle Boy, which was just like a goofy babyface thing. And he turned heel, but it was like, nah. He's always awesome in the ring because everybody in AEW is awesome in the ring, but he really didn't have a story or like a character to sink his teeth into. And then when the Punk thing happened, Tony Khan also then suspended, in air quotes, Jack Perry too. Okay. In reality, what he did was sent him to New Japan and let him go wrestle there for a while and develop the character of the scapegoat. Like, I'm the scapegoat. You fired me or you suspended me because I'm the scapegoat for your fuck ups with the whole Punk thing. Huh. And now he's got like this hard edge and he's a little prick. And like it's a great character for him. I was curious if you saw the familial.
I didn't, and I knew previously that Luke Perry's son was in this, and I didn't even put two and two together that that's who that was.
Yeah. So like I dug this segment. Always happy to see Kyle O'Reilly because makes me think of Beverly.
Yeah.
And I think he will be part of Blood and Guts too, which I dig. I just don't want fucking Billy Gunn anywhere associated with it. And he'll put himself in. He's the worst. What'd you think of Timeless Tony Storm's promo?
I really love her. I do. I think
she's the most popular one.
Her character is great, and I like to listen to her talk. And I kind of want to hear more of what she has to say because she told me how great she is when she's like,
saying super dirty stuff.
And stuff. Yeah. So
her dirty jokes are the best.
I definitely want to hear more of her.
But Mariah May did her Tony Storm's catchphrases: chin up, tits out, and watch for the shoe. The reason it's watch for the shoe is because when she first started like losing her mind and believing that she was like a 1940s film star, Renee Paquette would interview her, and invariably she'd get pissed off at something Renee said, would storm off, and then you would see a high heel shoe come flying back into frame to try to hit Renee. So
I think it's such a great character. Again, it's like over the top, but it's done in the right way. That doesn't make it like, oh.
Took a minute to get there too, because she's always been. She was like she wrestled in Japan.
Yeah, you told me that.
Awesome wrestler always. When she started doing this character, she started doing too much like of the character shit in the matches.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh no, you're wrestling not as good because just do the character stuff everywhere else. Still wrestle like Tony Storm. And like in the last 3 months or 4 months or whatever, she is
like tightened it up.
Found a nice happy medium where I can still kick all form of ass in the ring and like and still do my character thing. I loved the whole Mina Shirakawa, Mariah May, like all of it. People were pissed off that they didn't like break them up because they thought it was like, oh, well, you're not paying it off. No, it's payoff that like the end game was that they get along now. Yeah. They're friends. They have respect for each other. It's okay to do that.
Right. It's a nice change of pace sometimes.
Next up, we had what I thought was an absolutely fantastic match. The female wrestler who I think is probably the best wrestler on the female roster, on the women's roster in AEW and maybe in like North American wrestling, Chris Statlander.
Okay.
Against Willow Nightingale. Chris Statlander, she's kind of famous for nobody has a bad match against Chris Statlander.
Okay.
She's so awesome that like it doesn't matter who she's in there against. She just is awesome. I can't
reiterate again this week enough how different the female wrestling stuff is. It's amazing.
Well, these two beat the fucking shit out of each other in this.
And like I haven't across both companies. I don't think I've seen a bad match yet with the women.
Yeah.
I've seen bad matches with the men.
Yeah,
I haven't seen.
You will see some bad WWE women's wrestling.
Okay.
But like that'll happen.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, like everything's been engaging enough that I've really enjoyed it.
The way Dave has put it in the past is like there are definitely levels to the women's division in WWE where like there's the top and then there's like a mid top and then there's a pretty big drop off to like young developing.
Okay.
And the young developing have some shit matches.
Yeah.
AEW is like there is no strata. It is you need to be elite, not to like no pun intended. You got to be the best, or else you just don't get on TV.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's really, really, really fun to watch them. And coming from 20 years ago, it was absolutely not fun to watch them.
It was the worst. It was the worst.
Awful. Like I said, I would walk out of the room because I was like, well, here's like where I've got 10 minutes where I can go do something else.
I can't even fucking go back and watch the old stuff because for different reasons now. Now it's so uncomfortable.
Right.
Like,
well, that
socially
whole level
to watch
to
like,
it aside.
like that heavy duty rape vibe that hangs in the air over all
but even
all things women.
The wrestling, I was always like super afraid they were going to get so hurt because they didn't know what they were doing.
Barely any wrestling.
But
it was
like just throwing each other as much as they could.
Yeah.
But it was like it looked so awful. And
like
drawn.
when Lita started, it felt like they taught her how to do a Hurricane Rana. And then said, "Go wrestle," like, and she couldn't really do anything else. And a Hurricane Rana is like not an easy thing to do.
No, and you're doing
she
it
would
against
do super dangerous ones
people
all the time.
who like don't have the skills to like accept
to sell,
that from you.
Yeah, to like carry you through
Yes.
if you're a shitty like that. That's what Stat does. She carries people. She didn't have to here because Willow fucking rules. Willow's my favorite thing about that happened in this match though was towards the beginning when Willow did the pounce. That's my favorite move. Like it's of hers. It's one of my favorite moves in wrestling. I've always loved it. There was a guy named Monty Brown that used to do it in TNA, and it was awesome. He would like do the pounce and then go, it was badass. But Willow's, she's bigger, so she does the pounce, and she's strong as fuck. So she, like, Statlander, the way she rolled down the ramp too.
Yeah.
I figured you might find this interesting. The reason that looked so good, even compared to other like wrestlers, is because she, prior to joining AEW, was part-time wrestler, part-time stunt woman for like movies.
Oh wow!
So like she did a total stunt roll.
Yeah.
Like rolling down the thing was a total stunt.
I have to say too, as not to get like too like feministy, but I like loved seeing that there is also a bigger girl who can like do stuff and is not.
Yeah.
It's not like we're gonna make, at least from what I can tell, they aren't like. Your whole shtick is just going to be that you're the big girl and like
it's not at all that.
Because first of all, WWE,
she got a big glow up too. I think she's hot now.
They wouldn't have had someone her size, and if they did, it would have been
a joke.
This is the big butt of the joke that you're going to be this.
Yeah.
We're going to call you the fat chick, and everybody's going to be like you're fat. And she's like, great. She's athletic and she's awesome, and it was cool to see somebody who was a different body type. But they all are a different body type.
She's
since the last
super
time
strong
I watched.
too. Like it's not just like
you could tell
bigness.
she's like
Statlander's the strongest woman I think I've ever seen. But like but Willow's super strong.
No,
too.
you could tell, and she was athletic, and she it was cool to see that. And again, they're all different than what I'm used to seeing because they're all built differently now than they were then.
You definitely would not have seen a match like this where two women just beat the ever living hell out of each other.
It's awesome.
Super hard hitting match. Stokely Hathaway is another one of my favorites. I think you'll find that you end up enjoying him quite a bit too. He's Statlander's manager.
Okay.
He's like the funniest guy in wrestling.
No, women's wrestling is so good now that they could spin off their whole own company and just do women, and it would be awesome
for
to
sure
watch.
Could. Like they could make Collision into a all female show.
Yeah.
I wish they would. They're finally giving the women more time.
Yeah.
Because they were always awesome in AEW, but for forever it was like one women's match and kind of in what they call the death spots on the show where the crowd is like at its lowest because it's right before the main event and they're kind of tired. So they would put the women's match there. Tony Khan seems to have gotten his shit together and understood what he has on his hands here, which is like the best female wrestler I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was happy to see Willow get the win. Like Statlander, she just turned heel. She's like, Orange Cassidy, the dude that you said.
Yes.
Who'd you say he looked like?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. Yes, and he does.
He does like a Ryan Gosling character or something.
She was part of his. They were the best friends, and that was the stable that she was. And she turned on Orange Cassidy, turned heel. So I don't like seeing a newly turned person lose, but and I also don't like the schoolboy like roll up pins. They don't do a ton of those, but I thought in this instant it worked because I need Willow moving forward in this tournament because she's like the most over outside of Toni Storm probably. And I don't think they could have done like Willow doing her big like sit out power bomb move and getting a definitive victory. So I was okay with the schoolboy, her schoolgirl, I guess they call it. Her finishing move is the babe with the power bomb too. She rolls. So did you watch I sent you a little a vignette video of Jeff Jarrett doing a little like a 9-minute interview. It was from like last Saturday.
No, I don't think I saw that.
So I texted it to a bunch of people, but he cuts this incredible, like impassioned promo about how it is so important to him that he's in the Owen Cup this year because he was best friends with Owen Hart.
Oh,
I
remember.
Tag champs with him. He like the night that Owen died and the piece of shit asshole Vince McMahon decided we're going to keep having a wrestling show go on after this guy died. Jeff Jarrett was the first guy that had to come out, and he was just bawling in tears. So the promo he cuts in the little backstage vignette thing, I wish they would have put it on TV. It just made you like, I just get a win.
Yeah.
Just get one win here. Because it's like old Jeff Jarrett. He's there as like a comedy act kind of now. He's great. I hated him his whole career.
Right.
He's great in AEW.
I could see what they were doing with this, and I thought it was handled so well.
Yeah.
Because of that. Like, it was, you weren't going to have Jeff Jarrett go on and win this thing. Like,
no.
But they handled it well.
But you want to get one win. Just get one win.
It was cool. I really liked it. Also, I realized when he came out that Jeff Jarrett now looks exactly like Mark Twain, and I kind of wish he would do a Mark Twain bit where he came out in the white suit and just sat in a rocking chair or something.
He wore a white cowboy hat and suit when he first started in WWF.
I want the full Mark Twain experience when I see him again.
He's fantastic now. I always hated him, and now I love him.
He did like way better than I expected him to do at his age. It was a very good match, and it was handled so well, and I thought that it was like a pretty respectful way to do it all.
Did they actually, is this where the match happened on the card?
No, it happened.
Okay,
they
good.
showed
him.
It was ahead of ourselves.
They did, so they did a little Jeff Jarrett, like, backstory stuff here. So that's why I was asking you about the promo. So they did, like, let people know, okay, Jeff Jarrett is a sympathetic figure here. Because he's been a heel this whole time. But now it's like, oh, no, I have to cheer for this guy. Like,
and I see he still had his, like, Jeff Jarrett guitar stuff going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
always. He's got the same stupid theme song from TNA.
But I'm just saying, he could pivot and he could do Mark Twain. It would be great.
Yeah, I'd be down for it. I think he also does like international bookings. Like he handles that for the company. Because his dad, Jerry Jarrett, was like, legendary promoter. So Jeff knows the business inside and out. What'd you think of Dr. Britt Baker, DMD? Segment with Mercedes Moné.
I think I told you off the this recording that I was not sure how much of what she was saying was like true or legitimate because I didn't know it's wrestling. Sometimes it's a little based in reality. Sometimes it's a lot based in reality. Sometimes it's not at all based in reality.
And people have varying opinions on whether that's good or bad or whatever. Yeah. The thing I wanted to mention here is it was true, the stuff that she said, that the mini stroke thing, I forget what it was called, but that she did have that. Wrestling fans need to stop demanding to know why a person is not on television for a while. Yeah. If the owner of the company or whatever, or a representative comes out and just says they're out or they're hurt or they're time off, they're leaving it vague for a reason. Yeah. It's not, you don't have the right to know that it's an ankle or
there's no entitlement for illness, knowing their medical history.
Exactly, because it might be some shit like this. Everybody thought it was like a bad back or whatever. Yeah. Turned out no, it's like a much worse, scarier thing that she probably didn't want publicly out there. And for months, people have been, Tony Khan doesn't know how to use Britt Baker. She's not on TV. Blah, 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 blah.
Right. I mean, even if it's strictly a mental health thing, that's for somebody to deal with themselves.
Yeah.
the more you put a microscope on it, the worse it's going to make
Hangman
it.
Page is taking mental health time. He's open about it.
We should be encouraging that and not being invading privacy.
But beyond the actual, like her talking about the illness and what kept her out and stuff, what'd you think of her as like a promo? And
she was good. She was really good. And I was immediately like, well, who is this? Because the crowd was behind her. And I knew that Mercedes being, Sasha and Mercedes was huge with people, and people like her whether she's a heel or not. So the fact that this chick was then getting a lot of the audience behind her, I was like, okay, well, this is somebody big. I just didn't know who it was.
And I think it solidified Mercedes as just full ass heel now, which, I mean, she was like buddying up with the EVPs now, which
but people are
that's what she should be doing.
Like people loved The Rock as a heel because he was The Rock, and it was like, you're never going to get away from that.
Some people are better inherently at one side or the other.
Yeah.
And she is 100% a heel. Yeah. Should always be. Much like the guy that closed the show out should probably stay heel for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
He could do Ric Flair and just be a bad guy forever. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But did you catch the digs? So Britt's kind of known for like verbally pantsing her opponents in like a little bit insidery ways.
Okay.
She made like a crack about Thunder Rosa, which is an opponent she had like couple years ago, called her sandbag, and that's like a term that you use in wrestling if you're not cooperative.
Right,
and you can
right.
like her. But she I loved the snark in Britt's tone when she switched away from the letting you guys know what I'm up to, and then talking about the newcomer Mercedes and how she must be so proud that she's been here since the beginning, and that the CEO thing, that CEO that's a thing that like Dave and many other people have bitched about nonstop since that first happened, because it is like bullshit to pump in a chant. It's got to happen naturally, especially when you're going up against Dr. Britt Baker. Who's the DMD thing was like that was the first one that got over. She was the first big like female star in AEW. Mercedes is a better wrestler than Britt is, but Britt is like way better at the other stuff, talking and acting, and she's a very good wrestler too. But like Mercedes is like an elite level wrestler. That's gonna fucking kick ass, and I'm so glad they're doing it at Wembley because it's a big time match. She kind of cooked Mercedes though on the promo here. I did like Mercedes doing she did like the pie face thing to Britt.
Oh yeah.
She was like, Britt.
Yeah, no, that was good. I did like that.
And then the Britt line when she's like, Mercedes like, oh, you gotta get in line.
That was
and
good.
And Britt's, bitch, what line? That's actually a callback to a kind of a famous moment from her WWE career with Nia Jax. Nia Jax one time said to Sasha that you get in line, bitch, and then her response was,
gotcha.
Bitch, what line? That's why
even
Mercedes then said, oh, I see you're a fan.
Oh, not even knowing that history. I did like their exchange. I appreciated that.
Yeah. Like, and when it's going best in AEW is like it works on both levels.
Yeah.
They have little nuggets for people that are freaky nerds. But also on like a more upfront level, it works too, because it just sounded like a cool insult to fucking throw at her. I liked the giant "shut the fuck up" chants that Mercedes got from this crowd too.
That was fun.
It's a raucous crowd, as per usual. Did you understand what was going on with the Ospreay Callis like little backstage segmenty thing they did? Bruv.
Not really. I kind of did, because they also had shown a little bit of like what had gone down
at Forbidden Door.
Yes. And so I was like, all right, I kind of get where this is headed. And I could see that like they're doing the whole like morality quandary that he's having.
He's a babyface now because he's in AEW. He was a heel right before he came to AEW, so he was aligned with Don Callis.
And I like what they're doing with him, because I really loved the way that Dynamite rapped. It drew me in, and it made me want to watch more.
And like there's not a character that you wouldn't that it would be worse to owe a favor to than Don Callis. So that's absolutely going to come back.
I got that impression.
He always calls back. Callis is great with that kind of shit.
Yeah.
He always calls back stuff, even if it's a year later.
Okay.
It'll be like, oh, you remember that time? And then like, and it makes sense. But yeah, like he forgets nothing, and it'll be something awful that Will Ospreay has to do, and it'll be very dramatic and incredible. But so you got it. He was like trying to be respectful, but like, I don't need you now, bruv. I'm trying to do this on my own, bruv.
He's trying to grow up.
Yeah. He's trying to not be a heel.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because he's the biggest babyface in the company.
He's trying to enlighten himself in his morality.
This fucking Jericho thing is not working.
I know. It makes me sad because when I left wrestling, I loved Chris Jericho. Yeah. And all these years later, it's even the stuff at the desk was so lame.
He really needed to just take like a 6-month hiatus, which he used to do all the time throughout his career. That this character he's doing now is so silly over the top that I get what he's going for. It's just shitty. Like it was. It's not that I don't feel. Oh, you don't get it. He's leaning in. No, I get it. It's a shitty thing. No, it's a bad performance.
It was like I was kind of hopeful because I haven't watched him in so long, and I was kind of hopeful like that when he like kicked Taz out and sat down. I'm like, okay, maybe this will be like really funny, and I'll be like,
and he still can do that because before this character, he was still. But
it was so lame. It was like you're watching your parents try to be cool or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was so
it's
like
cringy.
Oh no,
it's cringy. I hate to use a kid word, but it's fucking cringy.
It was.
I love the Bad Apple and the Redwood too. Those guys are incredible performers, and like I like them, but I have to see Jericho doing his ridiculous like grating.
It makes me sad.
It sounds like he had like just sustained head injury or something.
Yeah.
Like he's talking like I don't know. It's just I said I know what he's going for. I don't really know what he's going for. I a general idea, but I don't know why he's talking like a kindergarten teacher or whatever. Like
it is weird. It's just it was not a fun thing to watch, and I was kind of hoping like, oh, I'm going to see some old Jericho stuff when he's just talking, and it was just not good.
X-Pac heat.
Yeah.
And then they did like because he's Jericho and he can like politic for TV time, which is part of the character too. Like I'm leaning into it, but you really are doing that shit too.
Yeah.
Because they did then like the hat on a hat on a hat thing where they took out, so this was Samoa Joe, Hook, and Shibata against the Cage of Agony, which they're a really good like fodder.
By the way, I love that his name is The Wrestler. I was like, that's so perfect and great, and I love it.
That's what he was always. He was always like black trunks. Yeah, like that's all I do. I wrestle.
I was like, that's great. I absolutely love it. Like it told me everything I needed to know about who he was, and it was great.
He's the guy that Dave Meltzer Dave Meltzer's the most famous wrestling journalist ever.
Okay,
he's the guy that like does original star ratings for matches and stuff. Meltzer's biggest, but he's kind of a weird guy and like. He says kind of crazy shit sometimes. Like he's an incredible wrestling historian, and like he knows wrestling inside and out. But when Shibata sustained his brain injury in New Japan, Dave Meltzer went on the air and said during the operation, they completely removed Shibata's brain from his skull. And then I had to put it back in. And, I don't think that's possible.
We might need a fact check
outside of science fiction. But like, it was a pretty bad brain injury, but they didn't have to like make him into Krang from fucking Turtles. Jericho it's X-Pac heat. If you remember that term from back in the day.
Yeah.
Go away heat.
I mean, that's how I felt. Fun. That is exactly what it is because that's how I felt.
And then they get like, so the learning tree gets the upper hand on the good guys, and then they do like a million things. Like they could have done any one of these things and it would have been fine for like the beatdown, but they used the brass knucks, like a couple chair shots. Then they did a table spot.
The table. I was like, come
on. Why the table now after the knucks and then they like come back from commercial break. And there's a fireball getting shot in fucking Hook's face. I'm like, what's going on here? Why are you using like their feud isn't even that like heated up. They don't hate each other that bad. So why are you trying to kill Hook now all of a sudden?
Because they were doing everything and it was boring. They were doing everything and it was boring.
I think that kind of sums it up, actually.
Yeah.
Like, he's throwing everything that he can think of at the wall, and it's not going to work.
I zoned out of it.
It was the only thing on the show that I was unhappy with.
Yeah.
Even Dynamite, when it was at its very best, 2021, in my opinion, but like a lot of people would say all of like 19 through 21, they always had one shitty thing on every show. It was like the Dark Order, stupid spooky bullshit, or Jericho's buddy Luther, who's now Tony Storm's like butler. Jericho got him; he's his friend, so he like got Tony kind of hire him.
Yeah,
and like he would be the shitty wrestler that was on Dynamite. So Jericho just occupies the like take a piss thing now, the one bad thing on Dynamite.
Yeah.
But it is irritating that it's him every goddamn week, and then I didn't have Taz for the rest of my broadcast either.
Yeah.
It pissed me off. I mean, that actually is probably good heat, like good heel heat, because I'm pissed off for the reason they want me to be pissed off. I just didn't want to listen to Jericho's stupid, clown voice.
It was so bad, and it made me really sad because like I said, when I left wrestling all those years ago, I still loved him, and so to come back and to see it this way, it was just like, what's happened?
So, the next thing is a lot. Are you familiar with Hangman Page beyond what you saw on the show?
No, not at all.
So, Hangman Page, along with the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, Tony Khan, all started AEW together.
Yeah.
They were originally the Elite, was the Bucks, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page. Hangman has been, up until about like 6 months ago, or maybe 7, people considered Hangman Page to be the main character of AEW, like the protagonist. He was the good guy that would never be bad, would never go heel. Like, he was the good guy. He was super relatable because he like struggled on screen. His character did with like drinking.
Okay.
And his thing was the anxious millennial cowboy. He had anxiety he had to get over. Like, he was an incredibly talented dude, but to finally overcome Kenny Omega and win the world title, which he did, he had to get past his anxieties. And
which, by the way, that's a great like modern thing.
It's one of the best stories they've ever told, if not the best one.
Yeah, that's great.
But that's what Hangman has been forever. Okay. And he's got had the coolest like cowboy music that popped everybody. But then he started feuding with Swerve Strickland. So they had like a bunch of death matches. The two of them have great in-ring chemistry. Okay. And it seems like they're going to be the type of thing like Hogan and Savage or whatever, where they just feud the rest of their lives, or like Steamboat and Flair. But Swerve was a bad guy at the time when they started their feud, and he did some real fucked up stuff. Like, he broke into Hangman's house and cut a promo, leaning over the bassinet of Hangman's infant child. So, like, it made Hangman kind of go crazy that Swerve was now like more success was coming his way. And also the fans were now like backing him. They really didn't have any reason besides like, you just gonna fucking rule, so like I'm gonna cheer for you, like The Rock or whatever.
That's what it is. It's like, if you're really good at doing that stuff, then people like you.
But it like progressively made Hangman, the guy that's been the absolute babyface for 5 years, like start to get unhinged and like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
What the fuck? And so when he came back this time, this was his return. He's been gone for months. I think it was like just a personal thing. I don't think it was an injury.
And it's none of our business.
But he got a full like heel repackaged now. That music that you heard, that's not Hangman's music. It's like dark bad guy music. Yeah. He's got dark bad guy. Like,
I just assumed he was a bad guy.
Yeah, no, he's like, my mustache is because of Hangman Page, because he's a wonderful professional wrestler. I love him. He's a good dude too. But like, it's a cool. I think it's a cool heel character thing they're doing with him, because it's different too. Because the Bucks, they brought him back to like be their wild card because they were always together. And I like that. Like, he's a bad guy too, but he's like, no, I don't care about your shit. Like
It's his own thing.
Your nonsense is,
Yeah.
I'm not concerned with that. I'm past that. I have one, Swerve Strickland.
Yeah.
I need to ruin that man. And I like that he's like that singularly focused.
Yeah.
And that's like a cool story thing. So now he can, I don't think he's going to win the tournament. I think Danielson is, but if he does, it'll kick ass too. Swerve and Hangman are like maybe the best chemistry.
Those loner storylines are the best anyway. I mean, like, look at how like Stone Cold, when he was a good guy that wasn't a good guy. Like he wasn't a good guy because he wanted to help other people.
Yeah.
He was just doing his thing. And then like, if he happened to help you because he hated Vince McMahon, then he happened to help you.
Remember when
but
like the whole roster, Undertaker kidnapped Stephanie McMahon,
Yes,
and the entire roster was going to Stone Cold like, come on, man, it's his daughter, man. And I'm like, you're all wrestlers. Why does it have to fucking be Stone Cold? He's not Luke Skywalker. Like, you could all band together and help Stephanie. It's the Undertaker.
But
he
like,
could barely walk.
I always loved that stuff where everything else was just on the outside and it didn't have anything to do with what he was going to do. And if he happened to do something that helped you, he helped you. But that was no motivating factor. And so that's kind of cool on this side too. Like, he's going to just do his own thing and have his own vengeance or whatever.
He's absolutely insane at this point because he's
not,
like, and it was so. I guarantee you, inside during his match with Jeff Jarrett here, which is what was happening. When the Whose House Swerve's House chant started, without Swerve being there, Hangman in real life was like, "Oh, this is perfect.
Yes.
This is exactly what I'm looking for."
Yeah.
Like people to recognize that that's my obsession, and that's why I'm being a piece of shit now.
It was sold really well because I didn't know anything about him, and I was like, "Oh, he's a bad guy, and this is his story." And like, so it wasn't like we got to spend weeks getting him over as this heel character, and like
the way that he wrestled in this match, he's never wrestled in AEW that way before. Like, he did the same move set kind of, but like that vicious attack stuff after, like beating old man Jarrett down, like none of that stuff was Hangman stuff. It was but like, I love the obsession thing. I really want Danielson to win. I think he's gonna, but then I don't know what they're gonna do with Hangman. It could be like they push him further towards the edge of insanity because he's like completely unhinged at this point. I mean, Swerve did cut a promo on his infant son, so like I like that about his character too, because he's like, it's good to have well-rounded bad guys that you can kind of understand. Like, I would be pretty
like the Thanos,
goddamn pissed off too. Yeah,
where you're like, I kind of get where he was coming from.
I like, and what happens at the end of this show, I know why. Like, he did what he did.
Yeah. I love that match though, and I have to tell you, I had a moment where it was fun to see Jarrett, and I knew that they were doing what they were doing, and it was like a respectful way out of this tournament for him and everything. I had a moment where we, in our family history, we always joke around about our father. The story being that he went to go see the movie Billy Jack, and he like jumped up and like pumped his
when
fist.
Billy Jack did the spinning heel kick.
He was so excited that he got out of his seat, and I almost did that when the sharpshooter happened. I was so excited to see it.
The crowd fucking popped like crazy too.
So excited to see it. It was fun.
It's Owen.
It was cool, and it was like
it was such a brilliant idea putting Jeff Jarrett in this position.
Was great.
It was really for Hangman. It was to get him further over as the bad guy.
But it was like dual. There was like dual purpose to it because it was like a really cool way to send Jeff Jarrett out of this tournament.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the only reason they put him in the tournament was because
to do
the Hangman thing, because they knew they could get this great like emotional response from the crowd, because the wrestling fans know that Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart were boys.
And for me, it was cool because again, like I'm so far removed from current wrestling, but it was like, to me, that just happened. That Owen Hart stuff just happened because of where I came in my journey as a wrestling fan. And so it was really, really neat to see it. And I enjoyed it immensely. And again, I definitely think that he should maybe lean into the Mark Twain thing.
I do. It would be good. Like now, he like Hangman beat the shit out of him so bad he can go away like he's injured or whatever, and then come back with a big white mustache,
in a rocking chair, and
saying folksy
a
like
nice big
parables,
cool glass of lemonade, and exactly.
So I think I may have to like send you a retrospective on Hangman's entire. A lot of people
it would be great
have
to
done
see.
like 15-minute ones because everybody loves Hangman Page, because his character arc is like the most involved and like movie-esque of any wrestler that I've ever seen. Maybe outside of like Roman Reigns.
Right. And literally until just now, I was like, oh, he's a bad guy. Like that was, like,
yeah,
that's him, a bad guy.
What's crazy is he was the protagonist. He was the main character of AEW.
Yeah, so
People
good on
just
him
called
because
that.
he definitely did it well.
Also,
I had no idea.
He one time during an Anarchy in the Arena match rode his horse into the arena to attack, and his horse's name is Hunter Horse Helmsley.
That's fantastic. I love a good animal pun name. I love it so much.
Sure. Yeah, I like that he told the Elite to basically fuck off. Like, cool, different ways, separate ways, because people were kind of tired of that group of the Elite being together. My note says explain Danny Garcia to Aaron. I'm not sure what beyond him being like great prospect. Yeah, like he's young. People do there. He does have a thing where like a lot of fans are pissed at AEW for like starting him. Like he gets something going and then it
kind of gets stifled
like
a little
all of a sudden he's not on TV for a while.
Yeah.
And he's like, people think that he could be one of the greatest of all time down the line. Like he's that level of prospect.
He's pretty young. I'm
25.
Yeah.
Which in wrestling years is like baby.
Yeah, especially if you're like Billy Gunn.
Yeah. He's a fucking 65-year-old piece of shit. So like Danny Garcia kind of also has like an inherent built-in sympathy from the crowd because he's like a young kid that they want to see. They know he's like insanely talented. He's the best prospect on the whole roster. And like, he's been getting good at his dumb guy promos even. And he does talk like Mark Wahlberg, but like he's good at it now. He's got that character thing down. I thought the match, it was, I should do my, the next thing was the main event of the evening. Will Ospreay versus Danny Garcia for the international title. What'd you think of the match before all the bullshit?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was really good. If I didn't love the first match so much, it would have been my favorite.
Yeah.
But the first match,
I think you're right. I think it was probably the best match of the show. Was the opener.
Was fantastic. But it was really good. I knew what was coming. Like I've watched, even though I'm new to AEW, I've watched wrestling enough to know what was coming, which was exciting and fun.
I was gonna say it was a gripe of mine, but like I liked that they benchmarked it right at the start because it got me excited for it. Yeah. Like, it was obvious. But
I mean, it was obvious.
They knew that we knew that it was obvious.
What was
coming.
It was fun, and I mean, Will Ospreay is phenomenal to watch. I will say that after we recorded last week, when we were done, you showed me that Bryan Danielson
match,
Will Ospreay match, and that was astonishing how well they worked together. I mean, it was amazing. It was like
trust.
It was like artwork. Like it was.
It was art. It was art. It's definitely the art of pro wrestling.
It was like a beautifully choreographed thing, and I had so much insane respect for the two of them after watching that match.
And another thing I like about Ospreay is like Danny Garcia is a different style wrestler, and then Ospreay wrestles a different style of match against Danny Garcia. He's wrestled essentially every style that you can. It's actually something that MJF is kind of known for doing too. He's a chameleon. He can't do the flippy stuff as much as Ospreay, but he can like the basics. He can wrestle any style.
That makes sense then, because his matches, the few I've seen so far, everything is so smooth. It is like
it's crisp and precise.
It
Precision is always the word I use with it.
There you go.
MJF.
Because I mean, if he can match to anybody else's style, then that's what makes sense about it, and that's what makes it so smooth.
Like MJF stumbled over a word in a promo one time, and then he like apologized on Twitter, like he let us down or something. So like that is how precise he is about everything he does, the way he walks and moves. And anyway, what we're talking about is MJF was in the corner of Daniel Garcia, as we talked about at the beginning of the program. And he offered his beautiful dynamite diamond ring, which has been his like weapon of choice for his entire career.
I figured with the way that they were using it, I figured it had to be it
was like a tournament thing they used to do, and you win the diamond ring. He won the first 3 or whatever. So
Okay.
he always had it. And like, that was always his bad guy weapon of choice. He offered it to Danny Garcia to try to win the match, and Garcia decided, like, no, I'm not going to do that, but then turned around immediately into the most brutal hidden blade and he lost.
Yeah.
Ospreay then, like, post-match was consoling him believably, like, you're going to get there. We all see it. We all see it, bruv. You're going to get that, just not today. And then MJF then comes in the ring, takes his jacket off, revealing his all-white like tank undershirt that should have tipped me off that there was going to be a bloodbath coming, because it's wrestling in a white shirt. MJF did his thing where, first he was like apologetic. This is on me. Like, I screwed you up. Like, you only lost because I distracted you. I'm so sorry about that. And then he got Danny to stand up and he hugged him. And then he took a one step backwards. And
Daniel, you should know better.
to stand in exact ball kicking range of MJF. If ever MJF has his hands on your shoulders, run. He's about to kick you in the balls. He did. And then he bloodied Danny Garcia, just pummeled him with the dynamite diamond ring. Busted him open. Daddy Magic, like Danny Garcia's like pseudo father figure, manager kind of guy.
Yeah, I was
tried
wondering
to
who that
come out
was.
and help, and he
Also
just got
got
biffed
bloodied.
immediately. And then when they cut back to him, it looked like he was a corpse. It like blood welling in his eyes and shit. I don't, every time, like, I don't know what he does, but like, it happens all the time with Daddy Magic, where like, he'll get hit one time and then like you won't see him for a while, and then the camera will cut back to him, and it's a horror movie. Every time it's a horror movie. Like, it pulls in weird ways on his face and stuff.
It was in the whites of his eyes.
Yeah, it looked like the end of Texas Chainsaw or something. Like the Vinyl Girl getting away. Like, that's the pattern of blood he had on his face. That's not how it goes in wrestling usually. It's a trickle from the forehead. I don't know if he's cutting his eyelids or something. Daddy Magic's fantastic, by the way. He's a French Canadian, but for some reason he talks like he's from the south side of Chicago, and he always says stuff like, "That's what gets Daddy Magic's nipples hard." He's a very good talker. He does like occasionally fills in on commentary on like Rampage. I think he might be permanent on Rampage now.
Okay.
He was like a fill-in guy. He's kind of back off of the wrestling part. He was a full-time tag wrestler in one of Jericho's stables. That didn't imagine that Chris Jericho working with younger guys, and it didn't help them. But Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Angelo Parker. Angelo is not around because he just had a baby with Ruby Soho, who's a wrestler in AEW. They started an on-screen romance, and then it immediately turned into a real romance, and then she was
That
pregnant
happens
immediately.
sometimes.
So Daddy Magic has like kind of morphed into Daddy Magic, like the daddy for
that's funny.
for Garcia. So like, yeah, don't want to see his boy get murdered like that. But then, like, security's coming down. MJF's is just
I love when
biffing them all.
security comes down. Like, you've got all these gigantic dudes, and then you have they have to have security guard their doors.
Security is always like some independent local worker.
Know that, but it is like a funny thing.
AEW has two like kind of famous security guards, because they are like 340 pounds of muscle guys, and they'll use them occasionally in stories, but they're their actual security guys too.
They are. Okay.
So it's cool. Like, but this was just like the fodder guys, like the guys that come out to get biffed.
That's always in the history of wrestling has always struck me as so funny when like security standing outside of somebody's door and the other guy's trying to get in, and like, you're all like,
you're putties
built with muscle, and you're fighters. That's what you do for a living.
But they play the role of putties from like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Yes, of course.
That's what they're there to be.
I know, but it's always super funny to me, that idea that they were there.
MJF, so then he goes to finish off Danny Garcia with the sheer drop brainbuster, thinks better of it, and takes him up to the top rope for a tombstone pile driver. Christopher Daniels is like Tony Khan's like mouthpiece right now.
Okay.
He's like the good guy boss dude to like offset the EVPs. He's out there screaming, "No, you don't have to do this, please." Hits it, of course. Full on now heel, like telling the crowd to fuck off, spitting at people, blowing snot on Danny Garcia's like prone corpse. And then he leaves through the crowd, and a thing that just filled my heart with joy. I got to see MJF do MJF crowd work. He knocked a cell phone out of a guy's hand like 20 feet away. I found out later that these were not plants. This was people.
The first one, I was like, is this somebody? And then when he kept doing it, I'm like, well, it's not just like
the phone people. Guy. The people that were sitting around him were like, their PR people came out and they gave him a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what they do with MJF.
Oh, sure.
So the thing I mentioned before the show that I wanted to tell you about, it was the best MJF one of these ever, where he definitely went too far. He was in the crowd brawling. I forget what match it was, but he was full heel at the time. And he grabbed what he thought was a woman was like booing him, and she had a beverage in her hand. Grabbed the beverage out of her hand and dumped it on her like 9-year-old son's head. And he thought it was water, and it was vodka.
Oh, no.
So, like, he got some shit for that one. But they got, like, a bunch of free tickets. And like, but the phone guy got, a bunch of merch. And then the dude that he shoved, the other guy was, like, his buddy was trying to fight MJF. Like, you hear stories about guys back in the day getting stabbed, like, heels, or so hated that, like, people would. MJF's the only guy in any kind of modern wrestling that, like, I've seen elicit that kind of reaction. Like, people are trying to hurt him.
That's so funny.
Because they hate him so much.
And it's so
funny because he's so great.
Because he's so good at it, I like him.
He's the best.
Like, that's what's funny.
That's going to be the hard part now is, he's been, like, as big a piece of shit as you possibly can, and people will still, like, you fucking rule, though, dude. Like, you're the best. This was a good way to like, start it, because it's a different heel character now. It's a more brutal, because he's all swole now. He's like he's not like the rich kid as much as like he's kind of doing a Triple H thing.
He looks like Wolverine.
He's doing the Triple H thing. It was the homage to Triple H. Triple H couldn't like ever be the top guy as a babyface, so he said, "I'll be the top guy as a ass kicking heel." I think that's what MJF was doing.
Well, was telling us if he's doing it, it'll work. Because man, I loved Triple H back in the day.
And like. MJF obviously did too, because like he's been wearing Triple H stuff.
Yeah.
And like everything he does is for a reason. I should have seen this coming. Like as soon as he came back, he's doing the Triple H angle from like 2000.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what he's doing.
Which was awesome. It fucking ruled. I loved it.
One of the greatest returns in wrestling history with his stupid jean jacket. Ruined 2 perfectly good jackets. But yeah, I just... So we close this out with MJF fully heel, Mercedes Moné fully heel, and there's equilibrium in the world again, because that's what they need to be and to stay forever, those things. Yeah. It's gonna be a lot of work for MJF to stay a heel just because he's too great. But if anybody can do it, I mean,
but it's great to have the heels that you love. He's like,
and you do need to elicit the boos though.
But
you
still will,
get the reactions.
Because I've learned something.
People were booing their asses off. Frankie, a friend of the program, was at the show, and he's like, I was booing him so hard, and I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Is that it? Like the fans become a part of it in a way that is like they love him, but they're gonna boo him because they love to boo him, because it's like this thing that feeds off of each other, and you like, he's one of your favorites, but you're still there to boo him because he's so good at being a bad guy.
Some podcasts, like wrestling related media people, will always say like, "Oh, don't blame the crowd. There's not a good crowd or a bad crowd." No, there is. There's like wrestling fans that get it and the ones that don't, and like the ones that get it go along with it because you're part of the show.
Yeah,
like the audience is part of the show.
The audience is the third person in whatever that battle is that's happening.
It's a better story if you're booing MJF, and like that's what they were doing.
And it's awesome to have split crowds.
Yeah.
Because you love to hear the chants going back and forth, too.
Oh, yeah. That's a pretty common thing in AEW.
And it's great.
Get these dream matches all the time, like Pac and Danielson. But yeah, this, like, it makes Wembley feel like WrestleMania for them now.
Yeah,
and
I'm
it was
excited
not
to
like
see
that
it.
at all last year.
Yeah.
It was like a bunch of multi-mans and weird, like, house show kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because I think they didn't know what to expect doing their first, like, giant show like that. And this time around, it's like, no, all our big shit is happening at this show. So that feels like a giant deal. And then I also love, like, nobody watches Collision. It gets like 300,000,
You're going to make me watch it, I think.
They're making me watch it now because they announced right at the end of the show that they're opening Collision on Saturday with MJF addressing everyone in the situation. Like, I don't know if MJF has ever been on Collision before. Like, it's a brilliant thing to do.
It is. I mean, that's kind of what they should be doing to get people to. That's how you get people to watch your
and
stuff.
And MJF is like a draw, especially when he's a bad guy.
And I get that you want to put him on your main thing, but put him on your other stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the show top to bottom outside of the Learning Tree, and if they continue doing this, I am a happy man. So AEW firing on all cylinders
it was
is
great.
My favorite thing to watch of anything, like maybe outside of my own daughter growing up.
For now, she's not a teenager yet, and I've got one of those. It's not going to be your favorite during those years.
Yeah, I mean, fucking Dynamite was pretty good too. So like, she's tenuous at best. If you guys have not already, please go check out the WWE iteration of this week's Blue Thunder Pod. It will be dropping at the same time as this episode. You can get us on our socials at Twitter at Blue Thunder Pod, TikTok Blue Thunder Pod, YouTube The Blue Thunder Pod, or all of the above at bluethunderpod.com. Thanks for joining us, guys, and see you next week. Bye-bye.